I'm Larry Farver, and let's queer up South Florida and Florida. LGBTQ Florida braces for transition from Ron DeSantis to Matt Gaetz as Florida's next governor. Fresh off a failed nomination for U.S. Attorney General and a scathing House ethics report, former Representative Matt Gaetz is considering a 2026 run for Florida governor. Gaetz confirmed to the Tampa Bay Times, saying, quote, "I'm starting to think about running for governor," end quote. The controversial MAGA figure resigned from Congress after serving 4 terms following his nomination by Donald Trump. His announcement to run for governor follows a House ethics report accusing him of hiring prostitutes and drug use. The report also includes allegations of statutory rape, including involving a 17-year-old girl, which Gaetz denies. The Justice Department has previously investigated Gaetz for sex trafficking, but decided not to press charges. Despite years of scandal, Gaetz remains defiant, saying, quote, "Those lies have been told about me for years. They've never affected my ability to win elections," end quote. Gaetz describes himself as an economic populist and supports cannabis legalization. He is not good news for the LGBT community either. Gaetz recently picked up a hosting gig on One America News Network, which he made a controversial remarks on Democrats, drawing ire from across the country. Last year, President Joe Biden called for Congress to enact gun safety laws in the wake of shootings, on which Gaetz shared a post on Twitter, quote, "What about trans control instead," end quote. This earned a backlash from Representative Mark Pocan, who blasted Gaetz for prompting the idea that trans people are responsible for the school shootings epidemic. Florida has witnessed many acts of gun violence. It remembers the 2018 Parkland massacre, which claimed 17 lives. With Gaetz' potential candidacy, Florida's political future may face a new storm of controversy. Florida's queer community also fears Gaetz could follow in Governor Ron DeSantis' footsteps. DeSantis, a failed presidential candidate, pushed several anti-gay LGBTQ laws during his tenure. He is term limited next year and cannot run for governor again. His future is controversial with Trump's selection of Florida Senator Marco Rubio as Secretary of State. This means DeSantis must select an interim Senate seat, which likely means they will run for the seat in 2026, potentially blocking the governor from running. On our crazy Florida bingo card, we had no idea the LGBTQ community could face Ron DeSantis, and that moves to Matt Gaetz. As 2026 nears, the LGBTQ Floridians brace for what's next in his contentious political climate. Well, what can one say? I mean, he's a disgusting human. It's amazing that he's gotten this far and that there's still a political future for someone like that, even amongst the right. I mean, personally, I've always resented and I was raised not to be a hypocritical person, no matter what your political ideologies are. And the fact that there are people who want to see this man in spite of what repeatedly comes up. I mean, at some point you'd think people would say, if you hear it enough times, it's a fact.
Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Exactly. What are your thoughts?
Well, we remember Parkland, but we also remember Pulse.
Yes.
I mean, talk about that's a really important thing. But let's also not forget that drug use and hiring sex workers didn't prevent Andrew Gillum from running for governor. That said, Gillum still would have been a better governor than Ron DeSantis, that's for sure. However, the worst and most embarrassing part about the story is that there may not be a single viable Democratic candidate who could run against and defeat Gaetz. That's really sad.
Well said. We need to identify one soon. 2 years will be here before you know it.
Yeah, no, the scary thing is that in the state of Florida, despite the House committee's report, folks don't care, right? It's become normalized. This type of behavior, leading from our president-elect Donald Trump, this behavior has become normalized. So it's okay, whatever. There's a report, who cares? No one cares. But for me, as a person of color, this brings up a much larger issue of, Had it been somebody who looked like me, would it be swept underneath the rug? Would I have the same privileges as a person like him? And this goes back to sort of the old boys club, this privileged white, if you're a white, cis, hetero man, it's okay, but let it be a gay person, let it be a person of color, I don't think this will fly.
Well, you made an important point, because Gaetz' father was very politically, he was a politician for many, many years in this state. And so he has a large network and a large donor base, and Matt is in the district he's in because it's a very red district, and it's planned that way. But I'm trying to be optimistic here instead of always screaming enough, and let's be real. His OAN debut was a disaster because he's saying ridiculous stuff and he looks stupid on top of it physically and with all the makeup and all the crap. But let's see what happens in 2 years. I mean, we had the rumors about Laura Trump running her, and that crashed and burned. So in 12 months, I'm going to be more serious about this, but let's see what the next 12 months go on, how much of an ass Matt makes out of himself, and who does he piss off? Because he's got a big mouth, he's feeling pretty cocky, so he thinks he can say whatever he wants and not make enemies. Well, let's see how far that goes.
Well, and again, we need to do whatever we can do to get together as a community. You know, his past attacks on our trans brothers and sisters.
I agree.
It's just, you know, a foreshadowing of what's yet to come. And we really need to organize, like you said, buddy. Absolutely.
I just makes me wonder what's behind the curtain.
Yes.
Is this a, hey, look over here, while over here they're planning something else?
All distraction.
You know, and that's why I'm saying, let's see what the next 12 months go. Doesn't mean we don't prepare, doesn't mean we don't organize and talk and compare notes. But, you know, 12 months, a lot of things can go wrong in 12 months.
Yeah, you're more optimistic than
I am.
And I like the optimism.
I'm trying.
And I want to be hopeful, but I'm reminded of what just happened.
Yeah.
And what we're faced with.
I'm clear.
And to your point earlier, this is a reminder of who we are as a people.
Right.
So let's see. I like your optimism. That is a big LGBTQ story for today. There's no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.